It's your man StyleCon coming at you today with another video. And today's topic of discussion will be most mechanical wristwatch complications are useless. StyleCon. No, say it's not so. Yeah, most of the complications are completely useless. Now there are a few that are needed. Now don't get me wrong, these do add beauty to watches, but most of them are not needed. Now let's get into it. Obviously, as you guys know, I take my little notes, so let's go down the list. With that, a chronograph. I've owned, I couldn't tell you how many, 10, 15. Never, ever did I ever use the function. You know, if you want to use the function and you don't have it, most people have a cell phone now, most people have a smartphone, so you have that particular function on your cell phone, so you don't really need it. The GMT, when you're traveling, basically you know where you're going. If you're going from here to Dubai, you can easily look up the time difference and you can just set your watch for it, or once again you can take your cell phone along and it'll adjust accordingly to the time. The tourbillon, completely useless in a wristwatch. It was never designed for a wristwatch. They were designed for a pocket watch, as most of you out there know. The month on the calendar on your display, you know, now it is a nice function when you have the month, the day, the date, but now needless to say, if you have a problem with the month, you've got bigger issues than a wristwatch. Now, a world timer, once again, nice function, but is it really truly necessary? No, not at all. Water resistance, and this is something that I'm really big on. Actually, I was going to make a video on this subject, which I still might put out. But with that, and I was doing my research, most divers, they say, go down about 130 feet, which is about 40 meters. So do you really need anything, you know, that's 2,000 meters of water resistance, 3,000, when no human's going to actually use it? Now, you do need water resistancy. Obviously, I'm not knocking it. I'm just knocking these companies for taking and making these watches go further and further when you can't use it. Useless. Moon phases. Now, once again, pretty function, but do you really need to know when the moon is cresting? You can look outside. You can figure that out with ease. Okay, now let's get into the much needed complications when you purchase a mechanical watch. Now, most of the watches don't have all these functions on them. It would be great if they did, but these are completely necessary. A day-date display. Now, me personally, I don't need the day, but I do need the date, but I know a lot of people that rely on that particular function, so most useful. A power reserve indicator. I have two watches. I have my Panerai, and that has a power reserve indicator, and then I had a Mont Blanc that had a power reserve indicator. And both of those are incredibly useful for the simple fact, as most of you know, and those that don't, as your watch winds down, it loses accuracy. So if you have that power reserve and you see you're running low, you can just top it off and you're good to go. Extended power reserve is most definitely needed. I mean, most of my watches have 42 hours of power reserve, but I do have my Swatch System 51, and that watch has 90 hours of power reserve. I didn't realize how long that actually is. Now, I let it sit for a few days. I went back, and the watch was still ticking. I was impressed. 90 hours of power reserve, if not more, would be better. And something that's anti-magnetic. I know Omega, what they're trying to do with all their watches nowadays, they're trying to make them all anti-magnetic, which is more useful than the non-useful complications. I'd rather have that than a tourbillon. I'd rather have that than a GMT. I'd rather have that than a world timer. You know, that is most useful. I've had 2 or 3 of my watches become magnetized. It's a simple fix, but needless to say, it's a pain in the butt when it happens, because it can mess with your watch. So all watches should have that. And on that note, I'm going to throw in a little bonus, even though it's an expensive complication, but for a mechanical wristwatch, it should be added, and that's diffusing. And as I was saying, as watches with long-range power reserves, this actually tightens it up as it winds down, so the watch is more accurate. It is an expensive complication, but once again, it's a useful complication. All right, now on that note, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. As usual, if you have any questions or comments, leave them down below. I do appreciate the comments, because this is a topic for discussion. Once again, it's your man StyleCon, and I will check you out in the next video.